Today we're looking at one of the most terrifying and influential horror films of the 21st century. This film introduced a global audience to the chilling world of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Today we're looking at Before The Conjuring, James Wan was already a household name in horror. He co-created the Saw franchise, which revolutionized the genre with its psychological intensity and gruesome traps. He also directed the first installment of the Insidious franchise, proving his ability to build suspense with minimal effects. The Conjuring story is based on real-life paranormal cases investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren, two famous ghost hunters. The Warrens dedicated their lives to studying paranormal activity. Ed Warren, who was a self-taught demonologist, while Lorraine claimed to be a clairvoyant with the ability to sense supernatural entities. Together they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, NESPA, in 1952, becoming two of the most famous and controversial paranormal investigators in history. The Warrens were involved in numerous high-profile hauntings, including the infamous Amityville horror case, the Enfield poltergeist here in the UK, and the Annabelle doll, all of which would later inspire the Conjuring franchise. Though skeptics have questioned the legitimacy of their cases, their work remains a significant part of paranormal lore. The case that The Conjuring is based on is the alleged haunting of the Perron family in the early 1970s. Roger and Caroline Perron, along with their 5 daughters, moved into a secluded 14-room farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, hoping for a peaceful life. However, what they found was something much more sinister. Almost immediately, the family reported strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, mysterious knocking sounds, cold spots and foul smells, and also apparitions appearing in their home. Caroline Perron seemed to be the most affected, often feeling drained and even attacked by an unseen force. The family later claimed that the house was haunted by a spirit named Bathsheba Sherman, a woman accused of witchcraft in the 1800s. According to legend, Bathsheba was said to have sacrificed her own child in a dark ritual before taking her own life, cursing the land and anyone who lived there afterward. The story follows Ed and Lorraine Warren as they investigate the Perron family's home, where strange occurrences have left the family terrified. Caroline and her husband Roger have moved into an old farmhouse with their 5 daughters, only to find themselves tormented by an unseen presence. As the paranormal activity escalates, the Warrens discover that the house has a dark history linked to Bathsheba Sherman, a supposed witch who cursed the land before taking her own life. The entity, fueled by Bathsheba's malevolence, possesses Caroline and attempts to harm her children. What follows is a tense and terrifying exorcism scene, where Lorraine uses her clairvoyant abilities to break Bathsheba's hold on Caroline. The film ends with the Warrens successfully expelling the entity, at least for now, before moving on to their next case. Development of the film began in January of 2012, with the working title The Warren Files, and this was also when James Wan was announced as the director. Filming started the following month in Wilmington, North Carolina, on a budget of $20 million and lasted for 38 days. Bringing The Conjuring to life was no small feat. Director James Wan, known for his masterful use of suspense in Saw and Insidious, wanted to create a film that felt grounded, immersive, and truly terrifying, without relying on excessive CGI or cheap jump scares. The production team focused on practical effects, classic horror cinematography, and an eerie atmosphere to make the film as realistic as possible. James Wan worked with cinematographer John R. Leonetti to craft a visual style reminiscent of 1970s horror, like The Exorcist and the Amityville Horror. The film's aesthetic choices played a significant role in its unsettling atmosphere, such as long tracking shots. Instead of the fast, rapid cuts, the camera slowly follows characters through the haunted house, creating a feeling of tension and dread. The filmmakers used a warm, earthy colour palette with age tones to match the 1970s setting, making the house feel authentic yet eerie. And James Wan also insisted on practical effects for most of the scares, making them feel more tangible and disturbing. And above all else, strategic lighting. Shadows and dim lighting played a very big role in building the suspense, often leaving just enough darkness for the audience's imagination to run wild. While the real Perron family's home is in Harrisville, Rhode Island, most of The Conjuring was filmed in North Carolina due to logistical reasons. The production team built an almost identical replica of the Perron farmhouse on the soundstage to give them full control over lighting and camera movement. The set was meticulously designed to feel like a lived-in home. They had period-accurate furniture and decor, which was used to reflect the setting. Dust, cobwebs, and natural wear and tear were added to give the house this very foreboding presence. The layout of the house as well was designed with long hallways and open doorways to maximize tension-building shots. James Wan made sure that every room in the house had an oppressive but claustrophobic feel, making it feel like the characters and the audience were trapped inside with something sinister. During the filming of The Conjuring, horror movies of the time were starting to rely more on CGI and cheap jump scares, just to get some sort of reaction from the audience. But James Wan had something else in mind. The Conjuring relied on practical effects more than digital ones. James Wan believed that real, in-camera effects would make the horror feel more visceral, and that CGI could help in post-production by touching up certain scenes and taking away certain things like the wires and the harnesses that the actors were wearing, and this wouldn't take anything away from the sequences. One of the most famous scenes in the movie, the hide and clap game, was filmed in almost complete darkness. The crew relied on real, controlled lighting to move Caroline around the set and sound effects to help her ease her way in, and also create the sense of terror and dread. The Conjuring was released on July 19th, 2013 to rave reviews. The film exceeded all expectations and broke box office records for an original horror film. No one expected it to become one of the biggest horror successes of all time. From its record-breaking opening weekend of $42 million to its lasting legacy, the film shocked audiences and critics alike, proving that old-school, atmospheric horror still had a place in modern cinema. Audiences responded even more strongly than critics, with many calling The Conjuring one of the scariest movies they had ever seen. The film's word of mouth as well helped it stay strong at the box office for weeks on end, with a finishing box office of $319 million. However, it wasn't all sunshine and dollars for the film. The Conjuring was actually banned in a number of countries around the world, not for gore, nudity, or even profanity, but for being too scary. The film was pulled in Thailand and India as audiences were getting too scared and experiencing disturbing psychological effects. In Singapore, the movie was given a rating, but the majority of theatres refused to show it due to religious concerns. In the United States, it was rated R, and no one under 17 admitted without an adult. Producer Walter Hamada wanted the movie to be PG-13, so it could reach the widest audience possible. But Hamada had this to say: "When we asked the ratings board why it was given an R rating, they've said to us, it's just too scary. There are no specific scenes or tones you could take out to get it PG-13. After the release of The Conjuring, it soon became known that this was the foundation for what we now call the Conjuring universe, to which we would see a further 2 Conjuring movies and 5 other entries based on case files that the Warrens worked on. Apart from creating the legacy of the Conjuring universe, the interest of the paranormal began to rise around the time of the film's release. We started seeing more paranormal TV shows and other related media. But the biggest thing that The Conjuring did? It started the resurgence of supernatural horror. Many new horror directors were inspired by The Conjuring's blend of tension, atmosphere, and practical effects, leading to a new wave of elevated horror. To this day, The Conjuring universe is the highest grossing horror franchise ever, with $2.2 billion at the box office on a combined budget of only $208 million. The Conjuring was more than just another horror film though, it was a game changer. It proved that horror could be both critically acclaimed and massively successful, setting the standard for modern supernatural horror. James Wan's masterful direction, combined with a chilling real-life story, incredible performances, and old-school practical effects, made The Conjuring one of the most beloved and terrifying horror films of the last 50 years. The Conjuring is more than just a horror movie, it's an experience. With its blend of real-life horror, expert filmmaking, and deeply unsettling atmosphere, it continues to terrify audiences worldwide. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's no denying the impact of this film. It set a new standard for modern horror and proved that a well-crafted scare is far more powerful than any over-the-top gore and cheap jump scares. So what do you think? Does The Conjuring deserve its reputation as one of the scariest films ever made? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future horror histories. Remember, be critical, be scared.